Tulsi Gabbard continues to face opposition to her nomination to be the next director of national intelligence, and a group of experts says that vitamin D and calcium supplements do not reduce the risk of fractures or falls. Good afternoon, I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. The leader of opposition forces in Syria says all rebel factions in the country are being dissolved. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi reports from Damascus.
The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, which led the revolt against former President Bashar al-Assad, said fighters from different factions will unite under the Syrian Ministry of Defense. Ahmed al-Shar, formerly known by his nom de guerre Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, made the comments while visiting the Druze community on Tuesday. The forces that toppled the regime were made up of a number of rebel groups, some backed by foreign countries like Turkey. Shara did not detail how this unification would be accomplished. He also called on all Syrians in the country and abroad to help rebuild Syria, all as, quote, team players. Shara remains a designated terrorist by the United States. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Damascus.
There are reports of momentum in ceasefire talks for Gaza. It is said to include a pause in fighting and a release of some hostages held in Gaza and a release of some Palestinian detainees held by Israel. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
This is close, and with enough pushing from the outside mediators and the commitment of Israel and Hamas, we can get it done.
He spoke to MSNBC, but there are also mixed feelings about what it could mean if Israel and Hamas agree to a step-by-step plan to end their 14-month-long war. NPR's Michelle Kellerman has more from Tel Aviv.
Families of the hostages held by Hamas are sounding worried that the deal will bring only some of the 100 hostages home in exchange for Palestinian detainees released from Israeli jails, and their loved ones may be left behind. Palestinians fear that the ceasefire and hostage deal will be temporary and they won't be able to return to their homes in the north. A source close to the negotiations tells NPR that the step-by-step plan will get women and elderly hostages out first, with a 6 to 7 week ceasefire to allow vital aid into Gaza. Meanwhile, a right-wing member of Israel's cabinet, Bezalel Smotrich, says it would be a mistake to release any Palestinians or remove troops from northern Gaza. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Congressional leaders have released information about a stopgap spending bill. Congress needs to pass one fast, or the federal government will partially shut down late Friday night. The measure is worth about $100 billion. It sets aside money for disaster recovery. On Capitol Hill, senators are meeting with more of President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees this week. NPR's Claudia Grisales has more on his choice for National Intelligence Director.
Tulsi Gabbard, a former House Democrat who became a Republican this year, faces stiff opposition to her joining the Trump administration as Director of National Intelligence. Gabbard, however, told NPR she remains optimistic as she meets with senators.
Taking the opportunity to be able to engage with each of them personally and hear what's on their minds and share what President Trump's vision is and how we look forward to working together.
Gabbard has drawn criticism for her apparent acceptance of brutal dictators, including Syria's ousted leader. She's among Trump's more controversial nominees, who include Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, the Capitol.
President-elect Trump has also tapped former football star player Herschel Walker to be the next U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. Walker ran unsuccessfully for the U.S. Senate in Georgia 2 years ago. The Federal Bureau of Prisons will pay more than $116 million to over 100 women. They say they were sexually assaulted at a now-closed federal women's prison in Northern California. From member station KQED, Dana Cronin reports.
The civil settlement for alleged abuse at FCI Dublin is the largest ever paid by the U.S. government to a group of sexual assault survivors. That's according to Jessica Pride, one of the lawyers representing the plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit.
This is an affirmation that sexual abuse of female prisoners will not be tolerated in this society.
Pride says each woman will receive between $500,000 and $1.6 million. In a statement, the Federal Bureau of Prisons said it is, quote, dedicated to appropriately addressing the consequences of sexually abusive behavior at FCI Dublin. For NPR News, I'm Dana Cronin in San Francisco.
A group of experts has released a draft recommendation about vitamin D and calcium supplements. NPR's Allison Aubrey reports the experts find that these do not reduce the risk of fractures or falls.
Vitamin D helps our bodies absorb calcium, promoting strong bones and muscles. It also supports a healthy immune system. Sunlight is the primary source of vitamin D, so reduced exposure during winter months can increase the risk of a deficiency. Supplements may help, but they're not enough to prevent bone breaks or falls as we age. Here's task force member Dr. Gautam Rao, a family medicine doctor at Case Western Reserve University.
That doesn't mean that vitamin D and calcium are not useful overall for bone health, for other functions within the body.
Many doctors recommend vitamin D supplements to patients who have insufficient amounts, and more than 1 in 3 older adults take them. When it comes to preventing fractures, experts say physical activity, including weight-bearing exercises, can be very effective. Allison Aubrey, NPR News.
Researchers in the South are asking for help from the public this winter tracking monarch butterflies. From member station WABE in Atlanta, Molly Samuel reports the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service plans to protect monarchs as a threatened species.
In the eastern part of the country, monarchs typically migrate to Mexico in the winter, flying through southern states on their way. But some appear to stick around, especially in coastal areas in the South. Susan Myers, with the group Monarchs Across Georgia, says scientists and butterfly advocates are trying to better understand this.
Just how much of the population is staying here and what are they doing?
They're gathering observations from the public on the iNaturalist app and the website journeynorth.org. They say the information could help with monarch conservation in the future. For NPR News, I'm Molly Samuel in Atlanta.
And I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News from Washington.